Hi everyone, my name is Denzil. I'm a local artist based here in the Northwest, and I'm presenting a remote art workshop on behalf of CCA Galleries. They have a show on at the moment called Tilt at Windmills, which is all about video art. Hopefully you will have seen some examples of the work that's in that, and a lot of it is based on old video archives, including some work by a certain artist that's based on old teletext broadcasts. Now, if you didn't see that, there are a few, or just to remind you, here's a few example images just coming up now that I'll throw in here. So these are very simple digital images from quite a long time ago, before digital technology really came along in television. And you can see that they're very basic pictures that are made up of very blocky graphics. So those blocky graphics, the little squares that those are made of, are called pixels, and it's what makes up video games and all manner of different digital art forms now. So those little pixels are basically just colored squares. So that's what we've got to work with today. So you should have some sheets of paper that have square grids marked off on them, and a selection of little coloured squares made out of gummed paper. So this stuff is really simple to use. We don't need glue or anything besides. The paper itself has gum on the back that's dry at the minute, and all we do is lick that and they will stick. So you can see that I've got squares here of all sorts of different colours, and then using my grid I can just stick those together to make lines and patterns. So it's easy to make horizontal, vertical and even diagonal lines, and I can then just vary the colours to make myself all sorts of different patterns. Okay, so there's a couple over here that I've made earlier. So we can quite easily make basic faces, objects like flowers and fruit and even animals by using these little blocks, or we can use them like Roman mosaic tiles and simply make blocky patterns out of the nice bright colours. Okay, so let's have a look at how we do that. So I can start off by just making patterns and lines by simply sticking these down any way that I want. So these have already been pre-cut into squares for you. These came as large sheets of paper, and we just need to lick them and stick them down. Okay, so you can follow the lines to make sure that you get things in horizontal and vertical lines, and my advice is to make sure that you lick over the whole surface on the back of it so it all sticks down flat, otherwise they tend to curl up and they don't look as tight. So I'm going to choose a couple of colours here to work with, okay, before I really get started. So that red and yellow look really good together, and I'll maybe put in some black as just a nice strong contrast to that. So we can just leave the white squares to be white, since there's no actual white strips of the gummed paper. And then we do have black for a nice contrast. Now, if we want to do something a little bit more complex, we might have to just think about how many lines we have one way and another. So I'll just make this into a bit more of an irregular shape rather than being a square. I can keep going until I fill up the sheet of paper, but I can leave some white space around it as well. Okay, so with a combination of different colors, I can make different patterns that look like tiles. We can then perhaps put all of the classrooms ones together so we create a really big tiling pattern. But if we want to do something that looks more like a character or an object, we're going to need to think a little bit more about how we use the space. Okay, so we have 14 squares width and we have 9 squares in height. So we may need to think about whether our picture is going to be horizontal or that we want to turn the piece of paper around and make a taller picture, depending on what it is that we're trying to make. So you'll see that we need to keep things pretty basic here. We are working with a very blocky system here of only having 9 squares across and 14 squares up. So we're not going to be able to do anything too complex. We're not going to do a perfect copy of the Mona Lisa. But as long as we keep things simple and we try and start from the center and work our way out, we can get pretty reasonable patterns. And it's nice to contrast some of the really bright colors against each other. So the pink and the green and the black make this really stand out. Whereas try to pair up colors that are opposites so we get a really bold effect from it. So I'm going to use just a little bit of black here to make some eyes and then start to work a little face around that. So starting from the middle, I'm just going to space 2 of these black pieces 1 square apart, just so we got a little bit of space between them, and they're going to very obviously be eyes. Okay, just be careful because some of these can be kind of stuck together, so make sure you just get 1 square each time. Looks like I got a lot of these yellow ones here, so I'm going to use some of those to fill around. We go, got me a classic happy face emoticon. Okay, so I've discovered I've got lots of one particular color of red here. So I'm gonna have a go at doing a real pixel painting of a classic of arcade gaming, the Space Invader from the 1970s games. If you need a bit of inspiration, you can look up Hammer bead patterns and images because they are very similar. They produce these pixelated images by making little squares, but you'll only be able to do the really simple ones. Hammer beads can be, they can get quite big boards, and the hammer beads themselves are small. So bear in mind that it's only the really simple ones that are going to work for something like this, that are very pixelated, like this image here. Okay, that should be enough gathered up. And there we go. Okay, so have fun. Don't forget to keep your designs simple and go with the contrast of having bright opposite colors right beside each other. Then that'll make the designs really stand out and be bold. Here's the final images that I produced. Don't forget to mix up your colors. Bright colors beside each other stand out really well, and keep your patterns simple. Okay, and we get this nice pixelated blocky look. Okay, so the Tilt at Windmills show is on at the gallery, and if you want to bring your family up there to see the show itself that's inspired the workshop, then it'll be on until the end of the year, and we hope to see you there at some point. Okay, enjoy the workshop, everybody. Bye bye.